What's up guys, this is Boondocks and today I want to show my Nekros solo build. Now of course you can still use this as a team, but to me if I was going to be rolling with a team I would just take pure Desecrate range, whereas in this I'm actually slightly negative in the range department, but overall I still find this build to be ridiculously fun when going through solo. Now I am using Nekros Prime, but your normal Nekros will also work. So basically what the whole point of this build is to summon a giant army of shadows that are going to tank for you while you can get up close and personal with the enemies and then finish them off with whatever power weapon you have. Now in this case I am going to be using the Tigris Prime, the other new Prime weapon that came out, along with the Galentine Prime, both of which are insanely powerful and will suit very well for this build. So for starters, I'm going to be summoning what would be like your typical combat and say high level void enemies, and they're going to be level 100 with a nice little assortment. So one of the main things here is you need to keep your shadow army up at all times. But thanks to the new rework in Desecrate, you can actually have Desecrate going 24/7 and be able to get those extra drops, as well as having health and extra energy drops to sustain you. I am able to use Zenerek, however, thanks to the fact that while your Desecrate is channeled, it only drains your energy whenever it's desecrating a body. And because of that, that means I can constantly be sitting here and regenning all the energy I possibly need thanks to Zenerek. One of the main things too is whenever you kill a nice big new enemy, you're probably going to want to resummon your clones. Not to mention, the enemies are going to constantly keep scaling up, so in order to counter that, you're going to need to at all times be resummoning a newer, higher powered shadow army. Because your shadow army is going to be based off of the strongest enemies you've killed, and therefore if you start killing like level 80s when earlier your shadow army is made of level 60s, you're going to want to resummon them. And as you can see, I can pretty much just walk up and face tank any enemy I want because they're going to get distracted by your clones. Not only do the clones have a built-in taunt, but they also will absorb 6% of my damage that I take distributed to each one of my clones. So in grand total, that's a shit ton of extra damage that I'm just not taking thanks to having the clone army around. So right there, a grenade actually just went off and it did pretty much nothing to me thanks to the fact that I had the clone army to absorb most of the damage. Of course, when you get in close and you start getting overwhelmed, feel free to use your Terrify and your Soul Punch in order to control the enemies and generally just get them to where you want in order to finish them off. So let's kind of look about the abilities, exactly what they do, and then how I'm going to build for them. So for starters, the main thing that we're going to be using here is the Shadows of the Dead. This is your ultimate ability, and it's going to summon up to 7 of the most powerful enemies you've killed, and this is going to scale a couple of interesting ways. For starters, you're going to get a damage multiplier, a health and shield multiplier based off of your power strength. So the more power strength you have, the higher your multiplier is going to be. Pretty straightforward. However, your shadows are also going to lose health every second based off of a percentage. So even if you kill a really high health target, they're going to lose the same amount of health each second as a weaker target. So because of that, in order to prevent them all from dying very quickly, you're going to want some decent duration. At a higher duration, the percent health loss per second goes down, and that's generally pretty good. You cannot increase the number of enemies that you can actually summon back, as they've changed it mostly due to the console people having issues with frame drops and so forth whenever there's been a big shadow army running around. Like I said before, your Desecrate will stay on 24/7, especially if you have Zenerek. So with this current setup, it's only going to cost 7 energy per body part that you desecrate, and it's still going to desecrate up to about 24 meters, which is a pretty decent range considering if you're at the epicenter, that's your radius, not like diameter. So really it's a 50-meter diameter, more or less. And you cannot affect the percent chance, it's always going to be 54. Terrify and Soul Punch are both very good for controlling your enemies, plus Terrify has that bonus effect of reducing your enemy's armor. And since we are scaling a little bit into power strength, this will be very effective against Grineer and corrupted enemies to be able to finish them off that much quicker using your powerful weapons. So the whole idea here is that you summon your Shadow Army, get it into the enemy's face with a really powerful close-range weapon like the Tigris Prime or the Sancti Tigris, Vacor Hack, and just blow them away. And because of that, it's really powerful. As far as how I actually build my Nekros, he's not perfect because I've only used 2 form on him. I believe it was 2. It might have only been 1 now that I think about it. And that was to give him the Naramon polarity. Now, I'm using Energy Siphon because, again, you can constantly keep getting back that energy while it desecrates on, and that'll be very helpful. But if you have Zeneric, you don't need to worry about it. Instead, I would recommend using a Corrosive Projection. However, this is a slot that you're going to need to first mod anyway, so if you decide to go for a Matter Eye, then you could always use Steel Charge or something else like Rifle Lamp or anything you want in order to get you the proper polarity and the extra capacity. Then I'm going to be using Vitality because you're going to be getting a lot of health orbs from Desecrate, so having a larger health pool is definitely what you want to aim for. Outside of that, I'm going to want to try to have a decent amount of duration, so that way my shadows are going to stay up for that much longer. So I'm going to be using my Prime Continuity along with Narrow-Minded. Now, Narrow-Minded is what's going to drive down my range a little bit, and in order to counteract that, I'm going to use Stretch. Now, the one thing that you might not need to do is use a Streamline for efficiency, because you're not going to be casting everything all that often, and even without a Streamline on, your Desecrate is going to cost 10 instead of 7, which really isn't that big of a difference in the long run. So you might want to drop that and instead focus on pretty much anything else that you might desire. Maybe another tank mod, it's up to you. I'm going to be using Prime Flow just to generally help my entire supply, so that way I'll have a larger supply to Desecrate from. And then I'm going to use Transient Fortitude to boost the multiplier as well as health of my shadows. Now, while this does have the negative duration on it, that negative duration is counteracted by the power strength because you're going to boost up the health of your creatures, so therefore, even though it's a percentage, that you can take more damage while being alive. The main thing here that makes you really tanky, though, is the Shield of Shadows. This is what I was kind of talking about before, where all shadows within a 50-meter range are going to take 6% of the damage done to Nekros. So if you have 7 shadows up, that's 42% of your damage is going to get redirected, assuming that they're within range. You can kind of tell the range by those little green light things that come out, and you might want to change your energy to make it a little less annoying than bright neon green, but overall it's pretty good. Of course, the power range is going to be affected on this, so it's not going to be quite 50 meters because I am at 97, but it's going to be like 48. And overall, that makes this a really powerful ability in my opinion, and it makes it so that you can tank. One quick side note, and I'm just going to demonstrate this by tossing it on and then demonstrating on weaker enemies. You might not want to use the Tonkor for this setup, and it's for a pretty straightforward reason. Let me just drop these guys down to like level 20 because it doesn't really matter, but let's just kill a bunch real quick and then come back over in here, simulate them again, and spawn my Shadow Army. Now, the reason I'm saying you probably don't want to use the Tonkor is if you want to try to shoot those enemies over there, but then your shadows get in the way, well, then you're shit out of luck because your shadows are going to break the Tonkor bullets on you. So you have to like thread the needle a whole lot more. As you can see, a shadow just jumped in front of my Tonkor round and caused it to explode. And I mean, if you're like a Tonkor expert being able to thread the needle and shoot enemies on the far side, then yeah, go for it. Otherwise, I would probably think about another power weapon that's nice up close in an enemy's face. So anyways, guys, hope you liked the video. You should definitely try it out. If you don't have the Tigris Prime or even Nekros Prime, try it out with something else. You know, if you have your regular Nekros and maybe like the Heck or something that can get right up in there and kill the enemy really fast, I definitely recommend trying it. So until next time, guys, like, comment, and subscribe, and